The Intergalactic Council had met that day with an attitude of arrogance so thick it suffocated any vestige of doubt. The Aeoran rulers of dozens of systems were used to prescribing phrases without dissent. As their ambassador prepared to land on Earth, they considered the planet just another acquisition in a sequence of victories they scarcely remembered. Certain that humanity would succumb like all others, humans were considered a youthful species, naive and unorganized, a menace whose prospect amused the Council. Earth had received the Aeoran emissary with seeming indifference, keeping a pleasant front. The envoy spoke in clipped formal tones, adapting his language to guarantee no misunderstanding. His words carried the weight of authority, with hidden threats woven into each line. Yet the humans before him kept their faces stoic, emotions unreadable. The envoy's practiced smile scarcely moved as he handed forth their terms, treating Earth's leaders as if they were mere guests at his court. There was no doubt in his mind that they would fold swiftly. They'd acknowledge the futility in resisting our union with Earth. Anvbanva, he expressed, his voice reverberating over the chamber. We will allow your species to avoid unnecessary suffering. You may continue your traditions, limited as they are, and in return, you will contribute your supplies to the Aeoran Empire. Resistance would be unwise. The stillness stretched. A modest alteration among the human representatives spoke volumes. Though they responded in carefully chosen terms, the tenderness in their tone was a mask. They thanked the envoy, appreciating the Empire's influence, but carefully showing that Earth's society valued independence and autonomy. They longed for peaceful coexistence, a mutual regard. The envoy's smile became an insult, extended too broad, rejecting all notion that Earth had leverage. His departure was accompanied by a ceremonial farewell, his ship cutting through Earth's atmosphere without so much as a backward glance. Back on his command ship, he disregarded humanity, as merely one among many planets that would soon be connected to the Empire's will. The report he sent back to the Council dripped with certainty. The humans posed no harm. But on Earth, the atmosphere was charged. In hidden council rooms, guarded by multiple layers of encrypted security, Earth's leaders convened for an emergency meeting. The faint murmur of voices was overwhelmed by a sense of urgency. The ultimatum had been clear: surrender or face annihilation. Yet the leaders' resolve was set. They realized that without action, surrender was the only future, and it was a future they couldn't accept. A plan was quietly but immediately set into motion. For decades, governments and scholars had concealed technologies and innovations they never shared with the rest of the galaxy. Advanced particle manipulation, plasma shields, even controlled quantum fluctuations, projects considered too ambitious by some but never abandoned. They had operated in secrecy, driven by the unspoken understanding that Earth, if challenged, would need something more than diplomacy. Meetings stretched late into the night, plans taking shape in muffled tones. The council members, scientists, and military commanders all agreed they would not stand idle. Surveillance exposed the Aeoran fleet patterns, the speed of their ships, the range of their weaponry, the holes in their communication routes. Every detail was scrutinized, exploited, and fed into simulations to anticipate Aeoran tactics. It was in these meetings that Earth's resolve cemented, not as different nations, but as one. Boundaries, once political, collapsed in the face of a shared aim. The human representatives weren't naive to the power possessed by the Aeoran. Yet they knew they held something equally valuable: a willingness to persevere, to innovate, and to survive. In the days following the Aeoran envoy's departure, Earth's leaders, military strategists, and leading scientists gathered behind locked doors, their faces set in determination. The planet was officially quiet, but underground plans were bursting with terrible fury. They knew the Empire had underestimated humanity, believing their civility to be a sign of vulnerability rather than a delay tactic. Every single person in those rooms grasped the stakes. They were conscious that they faced an adversary who believed Earth would succumb without a fight. It was in these isolated halls that humanity's actual intentions took form. Projects that had been mothballed were revived, dusted off, and inspected. Plans were refined to a razor's edge. They had worked in the shadows for decades, creating technology they couldn't share even with their allies. Weapons were tested, recalibrated, prepared. A fleet of engineers and scientists hurried to make them operational. Plasma emitters, energy shields, even experimental quantum distortion fields powerful enough to render any Aeoran shield useless were finalized in record time. Leaders across nations understood that collaboration was non-negotiable. In those briefings, the remaining boundaries crumbled, and cooperation flowed without reservation. Resources were extracted, efforts unified, and an international task force was formed. Their only aim was to safeguard the home they refused to surrender. Many of these scientists and engineers had families. They knew what would happen if they failed. They had seen the broadcasts, the planets stripped to barren husks by the Empire's unrelenting growth. The Aeoran fleet's capabilities had been examined to the slightest detail. Each vessel's specs, from its engine thrust to shield frequency patterns, were reviewed. A vast network of intelligence units tracked their communication signals, offering data that Earth strategists used to find faults. The Aeoran believed their technology to be untouchable. Earth would leverage this hubris, exploiting every unforeseen flaw. Late into the darkness, specialists met in hidden bunkers. Engineers calibrated defensive platforms, testing experimental drones that could intercept Aeir and ships before they entered orbit. Scientists bent over control panels, examining screen after screen of data, recalculating the impact of their technology on Aeoran shields and weapons. Quiet conversations were held. Contingency plans were developed. Every possible angle was considered. Humanity was preparing not simply to defend but to strike with an efficiency that the Empire could not possibly expect. Underground weaponry facilities stirred with action. Quick assembly lines converted civilian factories into military production sites overnight. War machines, defense systems, and attack vessels were rapidly produced. Capable of matching the Aeoran fleet, Earth's major minds concentrated on one goal: turning every piece of concealed technology into an advantage. They perfected cloaking systems, allowing human ships to operate unseen. Weaponry that bypassed traditional shielding, energy dampeners that could disrupt Aeoran detection systems. For humanity, this was not just defense. This was survival. The engineers who had spent years developing plasma propulsion technology, the scientists behind quantum manipulation research, even the diplomats who knew how to strategize psychological warfare, each had a role. Each was dedicated. Each was uncompromising. Earth's defenses did not stop at shields and weaponry. They found ways to confuse Aeoran sensors. They built electromagnetic bursts that could disable Aeoran ships at close range. Drones capable of kamikaze strikes with surgical precision. And all of this was made possible by the one thing the Aeoran never considered: human resilience. Earth had faced wars, internal tensions, crises that had nearly fractured civilization. And yet humanity had survived. Now, faced with an alien power that threatened their extinction, they did not cower. Humanity became united. Because for them, this wasn't just another battle. It was a fight for existence, a promise: Earth would not fall. In those tense days, humanity's silent preparations became an unspoken commitment to one another. They would fight not for glory, not to conquer, but merely to protect the ground beneath their feet, the icy heavens above them, and the freedom that was theirs alone. The quiet was destroyed when the Aeoran fleet entered Earth's orbit, a massive armada stretching across continents. The Aeorans had sent a warning strike, an overwhelming display of force meant to cow Earth into surrender. Their ships hovered like predators over their prey, exuding power and arrogance. To them, this was routine. Another planet would fall without incident. Another civilization would bow. But within seconds, their confidence wavered. Earth's reaction was swift, precise, and absolutely surprising. Concealed defense stations, both on the ground and in orbit, activated with perfect timing, releasing focused plasma bursts that annihilated the initial wave of Aeoran drones. High-energy shields flared to life, deflecting the first Aeoran volleys with astonishing resilience. A stillness fell over the Aeoran commanders as they watched their drones, built to intimidate, disintegrate before they could even complete their formation. In their command centers, Aeoran officers scrambled, assessing the threat. Their confidence cracked. This wasn't the helpless planet they had anticipated. Earth's defenses weren't just holding, they were aggressively countering. Reports flooded their screens, coordinated attacks against their perimeter. Counterstrikes launched with stunning precision. And human ships, hidden in stealth, crept through their lines undetected. Earth's forces were lean, strategic, and relentless, almost as if they had been expecting this day. Human ships swarmed the Aeoran vessels with surgical precision, exploiting gaps in their formation with deliberate ferocity. Every Aeoran counterattack was met with an unexpected counterstrike. Earth's fighters moved as one, each shot timed to maximize damage. Every maneuver a statement of defiance. Plasma projectiles sliced through Aeoran armor,